Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our Internet Talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, and in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, where we educate, enlighten, and No, I got that wrong. Sorry. Where we educate, enlighten, and entertain. Or maybe I had it right the first time.
Entertain.
Excuse me. Excuse me, folks. It's been a rough day. This is live, and we have fun. I don't take myself too seriously here on Chatting with Betsy. Folks, I want to tell you that, next month is June already, as we all know, and it is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. For those of us who have a loved one with a neurological disorder, we don't need a month. We live it. Or those of us who have lived it, we won't forget it. So this is for the public to be aware. And I also want to thank Jeannie White, station manager, for doing the blog, producing the show. And thank you to Lillian Caldwell, who's the CEO, Passionate World Talk Radio Network, who gives people a chance to be heard. And I also want to give a shout-out to really thank Lillian and Jeannie, because it will be 3 years in June was the first time I went on Passionate World Talk Radio to give an interview with Jeannie White. And Jeannie saw one of my videos in my car and connected with me, and as they say, the rest is history. So I want to give a big thank you to Lillian and Jeannie. They're wonderful women role mentors, and I can't thank them enough. Folks, you can want to listen to this podcast. I have with me a very dear friend of mine who was a caregiver to her mom, and she's going to tell her story. Now, everybody has a story that needs to be heard and needs to be listened to, because no one, and I mean no one, is immune to any type of dementia. There's no cure, folks. So we are all at risk of getting it. And I want to welcome Roberta Clark, who is a dear friend of mine, I'm going to say for like 5 years. We met on Facebook in a support group, or less now longer. Thank you. Welcome, Roberta, to Chatting with Betsy.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me, Betsy. It is an honor. I remember when this all took place for you and how happy and excited I was that you were finally going to be able to give voice to what is so important for all of us to get out there, for people to be more aware, because let's face it, this is going like wildfire. We have got so many more people who are coming up with dementia, and it's not stopping anytime soon. I mean, the freight train is coming.
Yes, and baby boomers are going to be hit very hard. And I just did a show, in April, but Parkinson's disease is now getting more, or I should say outpacing Alzheimer's in numbers.
That doesn't surprise me. I'm hearing a lot of that.
So this is important of why we need to tell our stories and make our voices heard. So, Roberta, you were a caregiver. You I can't talk tonight. You're the only child.
Yes.
And you took care of your mom. How long did you take care of your mom?
7.5 years. She wasn't diagnosed until 3 years in, but I had suspected there was something seriously wrong. My mother was bipolar and had been diagnosed in the early 80s following a nervous breakdown. And this was even more over the top than her bipolar behavior, so I knew something was seriously not right, and it turned out that I was correct. She had 2 silent TIAs, and they occurred about 6 months from each other prior about 2 years before she had a major stroke 5 years ago, almost 6. And that was the beginning of it.
And what made you suspect that your mom had something going on?
Yeah, because her behavior was more over the top. I had seen different things on Alzheimer's and different types of dementias and had seen movies and that type of thing. And there were just things that were coming up that made sense to me that there were definitely cognitive issues that she was covering up. And her behavior was different. It was, like I said, over the top even for herself as a bipolar individual. And my mother was never on medication except for during her nervous breakdown for about 18 months. She was one of those that refused to be medicated and acknowledged that she had a problem. And that was the same way with the Alzheimer's. I went through that where she was completely medication-free there, and we had quite a circus.
Did the doctors believe you when you thought your mother had a problem with memory?
They did. Yeah, they actually did because it really came out, it was about, she was diagnosed 8 months after she'd had the major stroke, and it went right into vascular dementia. And, thank God she had a wonderful neurologist, which she hated, by the way. But he was the one who diagnosed it on a PET scan. That's how he was able to determine it. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, where we were headed with this. And so I was already mentally prepared when I found out. So it was not a huge shock for me.
When you found out, Roberta, did the neurologist or primary care give you any guidance as to what to do for the care of your mom?
No, it was pretty much good luck. They really didn't want to deal with her.
Typical.
Yeah, and they didn't want to deal with her because, they could tell she was bipolar. And she was also very strong personality. For those of us who have bipolar parents, there's a lot of them that also have another not so wonderful disorder called malignant narcissism. And in fact, I belong and still belong to, now that Mom's passed, to, I'm going to plug this group if you don't mind, Caregivers of Narcissistic Family Members. And it's a wonderful group. And a woman out of Ohio named Julie started this group, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Kudos to her on that. There's a lot of people who always say, it's a disease. Well, not always. Sometimes when you're dealing with a malignant personality, it makes dementia all that more complicated. And I was dealing with that whole thing, and no, the doctors really didn't want to help me out all that much because they just didn't want to deal with her. She was such a oppositional personality. So this was all on my own. In fact, I did everything myself for her for 7.5 years, right down to the last weekend. She had 53 hours of hospice, and I handled about 49 of it.
Wow, that's a lot for one person. It was tough.
Help. Yeah, it was extremely tough.
Yes, you did have it tough, and you're in a situation, or you were in a situation, Roberta, where you not only were dealing with dementia, but you were dealing with someone who had a psychiatric disorder.
Right.
Prior to dementia. Yes. So I would think, to me, I mean, I have no other word to say, but that's a double whammy.
Yeah, actually, even more than that, more like a triple whammy, because
triple whammy, yes.
Bipolar, she was a malignant narcissist. She was also very big OCD. She was a perfectionist. She was a fanatic. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting life for me. At some point, I plan to actually write a book about this.
Well, when you do, and you have it published, you know where to come to. I'll promote your book.
And you're the only one I would consider thinking about.
Oh, thank you.
You're
think,
welcome.
Roberta, that, some people find it hard, adult children, to be a caregiver for their parent who abused them in some kind of way. How did you overcome that resentment, if you had any, and anger towards your mom to be able to care for her? Because not everyone can do that, so you're very special.
Thank you. It was very difficult. I have a very strong faith in God, and I was raised in the church, and I attended and graduated a Protestant private religious school, and I had certain values that were instilled in me and that I truly believed in, and as heinous as the situation was, I couldn't consciously just let whatever happened to her. I had to take care of her. My dad died of cancer, bladder cancer. It'll be 10 years in August. And it was stage 4, and he went very quickly. He lasted 1 week under 7 years, and I promised him, he was bedridden for 8 days, and he could only speak 2 of those days. I promised him 2 days before he passed away that I would take care of my mother, that I would never send her to a nursing home. And I was determined to make good on that promise to my father. I loved my father dearly. My father suffered along with me with the problems that my mother had. My father had a terrible childhood. His mother abandoned him and his siblings, married another man, had a few more children, and it was very tough on the first 4 siblings, and the last 3, they had everything they wanted, and it was a free-for-all. My father spent time in a children's home, boarded out on foster work farms, and then going back and forth from his mother in Indiana to his father in Ohio. He had a terrible life, and those issues also created a lot of distension with my parents. They were very codependent on one another. My parents were married 50 years. My dad passed away about 9 weeks after their anniversary. And in fact, on the 13th of June, it would have been 60 years that my parents would have been married. My mom lived another 9.5 years after Dad passed, and it was nothing but constant health problems and mental issues. And I stuck with it. Yeah, I said I have to do this for my father. I know that I'm honoring God by doing this, and I knew that He would bless me immeasurably for being able to make this happen, and it has happened. My life has been unbelievably blessed, especially in the past 2 years.
Would you say that do you I don't want to, well, I guess I will say, do you regret making that promise? Because you felt like you had to carry it out? Because you know, a lot of people, Roberta, you know this because you're in the same groups I'm in.
Right.
You know, people promise their loved ones, oh, I won't put them in a home, and then they need more care than what they could give, and then they feel guilty because they broke that promise.
Yeah, I was having a hard time with it, especially got really bad at the end where my mother clearly decided she wanted to check out. Started around Thanksgiving time. She violently attacked me the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and that unsettled me to no end. And after that, she just seriously went downhill. She had been wanting to check out for a long time. She'd been very depressed since my dad had passed and never really regained what I would call a normal quality of life. There were moments, I'll just put it that way. There were times. But she started not eating. We'd had a problem a couple years ago, but she rallied back. But this time I knew it was different. I could tell the whole scenario. She was actually, I figured out between Thanksgiving and Christmas with everything that was going on, that she was actually going into stage 6. And that really bothered me. Because she wasn't eating and she wasn't hardly drinking, and I was trying to push everything that I could. Of course, you can't force them. She got severely dehydrated. I put her in the hospital this past January. Got her all straightened out, and also her potassium had plummeted seriously. Got her straightened out, and about 10 days after she got out of the hospital, we're starting the same thing all over again. And she went from a walker to a wheelchair in January, and then it just got so bad. Up the week before she passed, I was having to put her in and out of the wheelchair. She could barely help me. She was atrophying. So her muscles were not working, and it was becoming very, very difficult for me. It was a heinous situation to the point where about 5 days before she passed, I would actually call her bedridden, and I had her sent to the hospital for evaluation. And, I was correct in all my assessments. I got the primary care to go with me on this. His family, they are part owners in a private hospital in our area, and we had her sent there. And they tried to straighten her out again, and they said, really, you're going to have to make a choice. And I knew it at this time. And I told my mom when I took her to the hospital for the last time, I'm in a unique situation where this private hospital doesn't have an emergency room. So no ambulances will pick people up and take them there. So I had to have the EMTs from my area come out and help me put her in the car to take her to the hospital for the last time. And I knew she was not going to even be able to have therapy. I had discussed it with the primary care, and I said, well, I'd love if she could have rehab like she had 2 years ago. I'd had her in a facility for 6 weeks building up before we moved to our new home. And this time, I knew she was too far gone, Betsy. I knew it. So I said, okay, I made that decision about 3 days before she passed. I said, we're going to go on hospice. And she went to hospital on a Tuesday. And it was, I knew that the timing was what it was supposed to be because she took her medication there at the hospital on Wednesday. And on Thursday, she didn't cooperate. She spit it out. And the staff thought perhaps that was normal behavior. I said, no. I said, she's telling you she doesn't want to take it. She's done. And I said, she's done. She wants to check out. She doesn't want to live anymore. And they brought her home Friday night, and she passed away Valentine's night at 10:40 p.m.
Wow. Again, no, this disease, as you know, Roberta, is so unpredictable.
Very.
There's no, straight, linear path with this disease. It just makes there's no rhyme or reason. But I do feel, and I've seen in a lot of groups, it seems like once they get to a certain point, and then it just snowballs until they die.
That's what happened with my mom, because everybody who was close to us in our area was very shocked that she progressed so quickly. And I said, I'm telling you guys, she's not going to make this. I already knew it internally.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I knew it. She just didn't have the stamina anymore. She didn't want to live anymore. I did everything humanly possible. And you beat yourself up after they pass. I know you have with Matt. And you do the best that you can. You can't force feed them. And even the physician said you don't want a feeding tube. You don't want to go down that road. I mean, everybody had told me that I was doing the right things, not to feel guilty. It was her choice. She did what she wanted to do, and the one thing that I can be very blessed about, that I feel so, well, for a better word, verklempt, okay? People that have their family members that no longer know them. I was blessed. My mother knew me to the end. I will always have that forever with me. She knew me to the end. She wasn't very communicative over that weekend, obviously, but there were moments, and we'd had a beautiful time her last year, even though it was so bad. It was a mixed blessing. I had lost my job just prior to the pandemic, and I had the last 15 months that she had on Earth, I was with her 24/7. And like I said, it was a mixed blessing, but it was good because I was there with her. And there were many times when she was lucid, and she would apologize for different things that went on that were beyond her control bodily, and feel bad, saying she was a burden. I did everything to try to convince her that, that was not the case. Many times she'd reach out and grab my hand. Many times I'd hug her, and I'd pat her on the head and pat her on the side of the cheek, and I'd say, I love you, Mom. And she'd say, I'm so glad somebody loves me. You love me even in spite of all of this. Now, see, she never admitted she had it, but I know deep within my heart of hearts that she knew she had it, and she was afraid.
Yes, they do get afraid. I always say, Roberta, you've heard me say this. Dementia can will rob the brain, but it cannot rob the heart of love, and I believe that.
No, it cannot. You're absolutely correct about that.
Truly believe that, and this is why I tell people, even though your loved one, even though in some cases they may not recognize your face, they know your voice, and they can hear, and they know that love. There's that connection, and no dementia can take that away. And that's what I really try to tell people.
No, you're absolutely correct about that. And I have no doubt in my mind with my mom as well, so many times, that she was grateful that I was here caring for her. She was scared to death to go to a nursing home and thought that I would eventually get tired of it and it would be too hard. At the end, I did tell her, I said, Mom, I can't do this alone anymore. I figured that it wasn't going to be long. I said to her, I'm going to have caregivers come in and help when you come back from the hospital. And I said, I'm going to have somebody here at least one night a week so I can get some sleep. Yeah. And we never got to that point. She just chose to check out, and we did hospice, and she died peacefully.
That's great that she died at home. Or did she die in a hospital?
No,
she died at home,
she died
right?
At home. She died at home. They set up a hospital bed in our living room, and we have a window that overlooks a beautiful pond with a fountain in the spring. Of course, it wasn't time for that yet, but she had the opportunity to look out over that pond all weekend before she passed.
You gave your mother a beautiful end of life.
I'd like to think I did.
You know, she was with you. She was, you know, in her home, and she knew that you loved her no matter what, and that's what her heart felt, and that's what you have to believe.
Yes.
I have to ask you this question because I'm curious. Being that your mother had psychiatric issues and she had dementia, was she on any psychiatric drugs? Did it help her if she was?
No, she refused to take them. The only thing that she would take was Librium. And if anybody knows anything about Librium out in the audience, they use that now for people who are detoxing. But they used to use it like they did Valium, which is what came to my head. And it's a drug they used back as a tranquilizer very liberally in the 60s and 70s. And that's
I was going to say, that's an old-time one.
It is, and it was almost like taking a water pill. I mean, it really didn't do anything, or a sugar pill, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it really didn't do a whole lot. It would just barely take the edge off of it. Yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot there to contend with.
What wisdom would you like to share with the audience that you learned? If you could do anything over again that you had learned, what would you do?
I would be, even though it killed me and it kills so many caregivers, and I so understand it is so hard, is really bite the bullet and be even more patient. Make your patience 200% of what you think it ought to be. I think that is a big key because they get very uptight and frustrated, and they get sometimes even into anger mode when they see that you're impatient or you get uptight. Caregivers really need to watch their moods around their loved ones. The moods and emotions, that's a big thing. If you've got to have an outlet, do what you can to talk to people. I'm the same way as you are, Betsy. My big thing and what really saved me and got me through this, besides my faith in God and my faith community, was the fact that I had these Facebook groups that I belonged to that made a huge difference in communicating with the other caregivers, knowing what they were going through and feeling like I wasn't alone in this, that I may be alone giving the care, but I was not alone. There were other people who had those same issues that we could communicate back and forth and lift each other up. And it made a tremendous impact on my caregiving. The other thing that I can say, and I'm really super big into this, live in the moment.
I agree.
In the moment. Yeah, and live for the moment. Live by the moment, moment to moment, because that's really all that you have. That's all you can focus and concentrate on between what you're trying to do for them and how they're living, because it is so different, as you know, highs and lows and everything all over the map. And, everybody is different, but most of them are pretty much the same because the neurotransmitters are not working, and everything just has a tendency to go awry. And if you can just concentrate and live in that moment, you'll be a lot more sane as well. That's what I learned over the 7.5 years that I would do over. I would be more patient, and I learned a lot in the last 15 months to live in that moment, and I did do that. I just wish I would have done that for a longer period of time.
I think we all feel that way. I know I did. I wish that I wasn't so worried about how I would be when that reached a certain phase or stage, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
I'm all for, just like you, Roberta, live in the moment. Do what you can do with your loved one while they still can enjoy going out and doing things.
Yes.
I know now it's a little difficult with COVID and getting over the COVID pandemic, but just enjoy them as much as you can.
Yes, that's basically it. Live in their world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Roberta, boy, time goes by fast. I thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'd like for you to tell the audience where they can reach you, if you'd like that, your blogs.
Yes. I actually have two blogs. I have one that I started up. It's hard to believe, but it's been 3 years this month. It's called Bees Buzz Positive Mojo. That's Bees Buzz Positive Mojo. And it's all positive things for people to look at. I think we don't have enough. I used to try to, and I still do, help motivate caregivers through different things that I think make a huge impact daily if they look at different things and they can concentrate on something else for 30 seconds even. I think it makes a huge impact for them to have the positivity. To me, there's not any positivity overload. So I have that. I also started a new personal blog after Mom passed. It's called Rising Out of the Ashes. And it's different than other things that I've done. It's kind of similar, and there is some positivity, but there are some dark moments in there. I'm honest about what my grief journey is like. And I invite people to come and take a look at that. I think more people need to do that. I think that's another thing that's not discussed enough is grief. Everybody's grief is different. True. They want to push it under the rug, put it under the table. People say, well, you should be through that by now. Well, you'll stop talking about that soon. Those are heinous things to say to people. I would never do that. And I encourage people to embrace that grief. It is what it is, and we need to talk about this. That's another conversation that people need to have. So I've got those blogs going. I have currently, and I haven't announced this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it on the radio show. It might be a little easier for me to do it because I'm having a really hard time. I started Caregiving Ninjas, a.k.a. Ninja Caregivers, 4 years ago, and also started a new one, the Nomadic Dweller, just, I think, pre-pandemic. And I have another group called the Beehivers, which is very similar to Bees Positive Mojo, but it is a private group. And it's a motivational group. I did that. It grew out of ninjas to not concentrate on the caregiving aspect. But I regret to say that Beehivers, the ninjas, and the nomads, I'm going to be closing those very soon. I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I finally got a new job this month. And
congratulations.
I need to focus. Thank you. After being unemployed for 15 months, it's a big deal. And I also got a cat, by the way, after Mom passed. About 13 days afterwards, I was on it. I needed a little companion. So I need to focus on my grief journey. And I also wanted to spend more time on a couple of other groups that I belong to that I feel I can be a better support person than in the groups that I ran. to be quite honest. Not some other people may not think so, but I feel I can give better energy to those. My energy is just too far spread out right now, and I've been eliminating different things that it's too much for me. I'm on overload, and I don't want those groups to stagnate. And to be honest, they've never been what I wanted them to be because of the fact that I just had a lot going on with my mom, and I couldn't focus on them or do justice by them like your group, Kick Ass Movement, Kick Alzheimer's Ass. I wish I'd had that type of energy, but that wasn't to be. But I appreciate the people that were loyal and stuck by me and stayed in those groups. It will always mean a lot to me. But I will be closing them soon and encouraging them to go to my Bees Buzz Positive Mojo page. You can reach me at idgyb62@gmail.com. That's idgyb. If you ever watched the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, there's a character called Idgy the Bee Charmer. Here I am. I am Idgy idgyb62@gmail.com.
Thank you, Roberta. And I understand about streamlining and being overwhelmed and the grief journey. You know what? I'd love to have you back on again and to discuss the grief journey because I don't want to sound like a broken record like you're talking about how the reality is. Not many people talk about the reality of after caregiving.
No,
and, you know, I think it would be great if I went on the show with another caregiver and discussed with another past caregiver the journey of after caregiving, because a lot of people, you know, it's not like I'm morbid or you're morbid, but there are things that a caregiver goes through after caregiving that needs to be addressed. And instead of stifling it and, you know, stuffing it underneath the carpet, let's pull it right out and out in the open. You know me, Roberta, I believe in blowing the lid off of what people think is taboo.
I'm the same way you are, Betsy.
You know, it has to be talked about. And, you know, the things that people say that they shouldn't be saying, I think people need to be educated as to what to say to someone. And I have had many a guest on Chatting with Betsy talking about grieving and, you know, dying and, you know, end of life issues. And thank you, Roberta, for coming on. I appreciate it very much.
I appreciate it.
And
thank you. I appreciate
best wishes.
the opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome. Been a long time. I've been wanting Roberta to come on for a long time.
It has been a long time. I know Gene White wanted to have me, and I couldn't even do that due to my circumstances. So I'm very happy to do this, and I will be more than happy to come back again.
Oh, thank you. Definitely. We'll have to have you back on. Folks, if you missed any of this podcast, you can catch it again on Spreaker, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, you will hear Chatting with Betsy. It's free to subscribe. Please share the shows. It helps somebody, and that's what Chatting with Betsy is all about, is helping other people. We help each other by sharing our stories, and I really feel that it's up to the veteran caregivers to help the new caregivers coming along, and that's what Roberta does. That's what I do, and many, many other people. I do have to always say that the views of the guest may not represent those of the host or that of the station, and the Passion World Talk Radio Network mantra is educate, enlighten, and entertain. So I said it right.
Yay.
I think I might have said it right in the beginning. I don't remember, but this is what happens when you take medication for a migraine. So I do apologize. I got it out.
There you go.
And I just want to thank everyone for, listening. And just remember, folks, when you're a caregiver, take care of yourself. Give yourself a hug. And if you know a caregiver, listeners, help them, support them in any way that you can, because they really appreciate it. And for, in the month of June, yes, I'm going to announce that it is a Brain and Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And, whatever dementia you might have, talk about it. You want to come on my show? Let me know. I welcome all people from all walks of life, and no subject is taboo. So I wanted to thank everyone again for listening, and just be safe and be happy and be kind. Thank you. Until we chat again, this is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy and Passionate World Talk Radio Network. Bye-bye, everybody.
Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our Internet Talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, and in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the Internet.